All right, we're live. Let's see if it's working.
We're live.
All right. Yeah, we're good. We're golden. All right. Episode 1, Fine Lines podcast with the boys. Had to get BK on, first of all, since I think the first time I ever did a pod was with BK. So natural addition to the first podcast. And then Matt Gannon, a.k.a. Jers, with us as well. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I got some unfortunate news today. So I'm a little upset, but I'm just using kind of like positive manifestation instead of like I can't do it, I can do it, and I will do it. So I've been better in my life, but we'll make the best of it.
The natural follow-up question would be, what was the bad news that befell you?
So I thought I passed my like insurance brokerage exam.
You sent the score,
but that was just the pre-licensing exam. I have to pass the actual state test, and it's like proctored and shit. And so yeah, that is the unfortunate news I got today.
Matt, how are you doing?
That's tough. Yeah, well, happy to be here. The lines are very fine. The margins are small. Yes. It's Ryder Cup week. Like, what else could we ask for? This is the best way to kick off Vincerix, I believe so. Vincerix, however you want me to pronounce it. But we're here. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. 1:30 a.m. wake-up call. I know Brian's probably not missing a shot, so we're here. Are you going to miss a shot, Adam? Are you going to be through this, like, every single shot?
I think because I'll be going live after the golf on, I guess that'll be Friday and Saturday. And I feel like a lot of people will be sleeping, so I think it's my responsibility to watch all of the golf and then give, a quick spiel about, at 3 a.m. when Patrick Cantlay hit a 70-footer for birdie. I've got to be able to, share what took place with the
That's a dig for sure. That one hurt.
So it's Ryder Cup week. I think the biggest story of the week definitely has been the movement in the line, no pun intended, with the Fine Line podcast. BK, I know you're in the content streets. I haven't been listening to a lot of content this week. I've been a little busy. So can you kick us off with what is driving? What are the takes that are pushing the Euro line beyond just like the Ryder Cup is in Europe? Because I really haven't heard that many beyond that.
Yeah, I honestly think that everything it's more reflective of how wrong the line was just a few months ago than what the odds actually are right now. I think that it is US should be a slight favorite, and it is very close. But I just think that a couple months ago, since you could get Europe at plus 180, plus 170, and now it's all the way here, I just think the line was wrong a couple months ago, and it's more market corrected. But I also do think that when you look at Europe's top 8 on paper, in a potential like foursomes, like right off the bat, it looks really strong in my opinion. So I think that, coupled with, again, they haven't won in 30 years. And Europe is way better than they were in 2021. I do think America should be like minus 125. So I don't think the market's that far off.
To piggyback off what you said real quick, Brian, I totally agree with you. But are we all bet futures? Like I know Brian bets futures. Me and you, Adam, do here and there. But what is it? Was it a pride thing why we didn't bet Europe at like plus 180, plus 190? Because like, hindsight, that was blatantly wrong, and we probably should have known that. But like I know I never was going into the past like year and a half like, I want to bet Europe no matter what the number is. But like, how strong I am about my American pride take this Ryder Cup. Hindsight, we should have probably bet that plus 190, whatever, plus 180. How do you feel about that?
So without getting into a deep dive on CLV, and if you just are on the right side of the line, like does that count as a win?
That's a win.
It's a win for sure.
If I still think, even if there was never a time where I considered the plus 180 as a I
agree with you.
I have such confidence in the US side, and we'll get to that in a second, that I think, sure, obviously, yeah, if you bet something at plus 180 and it moves to, minus 110 or whatever it is right now, that's a win in itself. I just think the Ryder Cups every 2 years, there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. I've always wanted to be on the US side, and I think that US at plus 110 is better than Europe at plus 180 in my, how I'm thinking about things. So I'm happy with how things have gone, and we'll get into why I'm positive on the U.S. Side here in a bit. But as things stand right this second, I know BK, you were talking last night, you were kind of on the fence, but I think you looked like this morning you saw some pairings that may have gotten you more excited about the U.S. side. But taking those odds out of it, just straight up, the Ryder Cup is starting on Friday. Give me a high level assessment of how you're feeling right this second.
My high level assessment is that this is the first time Tiger and Phil haven't been on a team since 1993 in some regard. This is the first time Europe has started with foursome since 1993. This is the most cohesive, talented American side we've seen. It's probably pretty comparable to 2021. And I think the course is more Americanized than Le Golf National or a K Club. I think it's more of an American style venue. And I think they learned a lot in 2021. So that's why I lean America. But at the same time, I am not discrediting Europe as much as you guys are, because I think they're ridiculously talented. I think Hovland has kind of elevated himself to, if not the best player in the world, a top 3 player in the world currently. And then you have a wild card in Ludwig. Tommy and Hatton had a great year. And it's not like, oh, Tommy's this loser, he can't do it in a Ryder Cup, when he was the best player in Rome, when he was probably a worse player. I'm having a hard time discounting the European side, even though I have a lot of reasons to be more optimistic about the U.S. side in the past 30 years.
And I guess on that front, taking a step back, and Matt, I guess your assessment of the course itself, and then maybe we talk more about how that actually plays into the players. But what is your assessment? There's been 3 Italian Opens now at Marco Simone. With Højgaard
as DP World Tour guys, we know
this is we know Marco Simone. We got Højgaard won there in 2021. Bobby Mack, a surprising win in my opinion in 2022, and then BK, were you on?
No,
it was Devo. It was Devo that was on Morocco.
That was when I was like, I can make my own DP plays.
That's right.
I think I bet like Rosner or some other loser instead of Morocco, but it's fine.
But we've got 2 winners that I would say similar in Højgaard and Morocco to some degree, and maybe Bobby Mack slightly different. But Matt, what's your assessment of?
So on that golf course, I would say every single Ryder Cup for the last every million years, every single Ryder Cup in Europe was a clear, distinct advantage to the European side on a golf course side. Now, these European players, no one plays that European style of golf. You can maybe name 2 players on the Ryder Cup team, if that's even a thing anymore. Every one of these golfers plays an American style golf, bomb and gouge, hit it out there as far as you can, and get the ball in the hole. So with that being said, the only, I would say, home field advantage would be the crowd. And these guys are used to playing in big moments, at least a majority of them. So I don't think there's a real advantage for playing at Marco Simone, playing anywhere in the world. These guys all play the same style of golf, and that's just not like a thing anymore. And it was at Le Golf National a few years ago, and that's just completely not a thing anymore, because those high-level European golfers on the team X amount of years ago, the Molinaris, those were the last of that style of golf, in my opinion. I know it's not dead, but you know what I'm saying? The Americanized style bomb and gouge is just totally
they all play on the PGA Tour.
Right.
And this is not a short positional course by any means.
No, and I think on that front, one thing I like to do, especially for DP World Tour tournaments, just because there's not as much data and it's kind of tough to get a sense of how the course is playing, is I kind of just go through, look historically at players who maybe finished first, second, or third, for example, at that course in previous years, and kind of get a sense of both how they played on the week from a strokes gained perspective and how they were playing coming into the event. And when you look at, I think I did first and second place. So in 2021, we're talking about Højgaard, Fleetwood, Meronk, and then 2022, Bobby Mack and Fitzpatrick, and then 2023, Meronk and our boy Romain Langasque. You're looking at how many players is that? All 7 of those players were above tour average in distance. So every single one of those guys above tour average in distance, all but one of them a positive putter, Højgaard being the only one who wasn't a positive putter coming into the event when he won in 2021. And all but one of those players was below tour average or world average when we're talking about the DP World Tour in accuracy. So to your point about this being a considerably different test than what we would have seen at Le Golf National, shout out Jordan Smith last week there. But we're talking about
a recap pod just on that final round.
We could spend a lot of time on what took place last weekend. But when I talk about a course that's distance, we've got guys who are putting well. Maybe what does that remind you of? I know I saw some interviews. A lot of the players were saying that they, were struggling maybe to give a comparison course to what this may be. When you hear, distance putting, what kind of courses maybe come to mind? And then getting into obviously the field this week or the teams this week, players instantly that maybe jump to mind as guys you like.
Screams Quail Hollow to me. Screams presence.
Windy C. It's literally Windy
C.
It's driver putter. So yeah, I mean that's what I personally think about when I think about elite driving and elite putting. It's what Windy C has done this year at Quail Hollow and LACC, and maybe even a little bit of Sam Burns, another guy like that. And I think, I don't know, I would throw Ricky in there a little bit. I know he had a great iron season. I think it's probably more irons than putting, but I think of Ricky a little bit.
And I think when we talk to the iron play aspect, what's really interesting too is that I kind of ran some numbers. It's up on the site. Let me just pull it up here. For like the proximity buckets, basically for the venue as well. And I think Rory talked about a couple of weeks ago, the goal being take wedges out of the Americans' hands, which, I don't know if the numbers necessarily support that, but that's clearly what the thinking of the European side is. And when you look at the approach buckets I kind of just looked at the top 3 players in the Italian Open this last year, they're below 175 yards is below tour average number of shots in every single bucket of those categories. So the goal of being a little long iron, being the main iron aspect as well, again, tying back into that Quail Hollow feel. And it's funny that you brought that up because that was, without asking it, that was something that kind of popped into my mind when looking a little bit closer at the stats. And obviously we saw what Windy C did there this year, as well as Xander.
And Xander, he basically won too. They both won it.
Talking about Windy C, Quail Hollow thing, I was just listening to one of his recent interviews this past few weeks with Drew Stoltz. I believe it was Drew Stoltz. He talked about the rough being something that none of these guys have seen before, kind of on both sides of the equation, both teams, because not everyone's used to Marco Simone, especially in these conditions. They said the rough was like a mix of a cheap municipal fescue that was just grown out to your knees. So it's just something these guys are just so not used to. Basically saying anything in that in that rough is nearly dead. So that just goes to show none of these guys are used to playing that style of golf right now, like just being that deadly accurate, which I don't know if it's going to play out like that. But I just think there's, again, zero course advantage on either side, just based off what Wyndham said.
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting, with the driver putter combination, just looking at the actual players for both sides here. And also I think so, like modeling this week, birdie or better 200 plus, I think is a good one. I think going for green, birdie or better, that's kind of not the best stat to use all the time, but I think it's interesting in this context as we like.
Good thing Zal's not on the team because would not be good.
When we look birdie or better 200 plus, a guy that you just mentioned, BK, Ricky Fowler, number 3 right there, and birdie better 200 plus. Rory obviously leading the way there. Cantlay, Scheffler, and then Ludwig. Tough to nail down his statistics at this point, but I guess going there to Aberg, how do you see the course fit for him this week? Being a guy who's tough to nail down, statistically, since we don't have the history of him.
I think he's going to be deadly in alt shot. You know, I don't know if he has the finesse around the green or if he's, this elite putter or anything, but I just don't see how when you're playing with, if he's playing with Hovland, which I think he is, if you have a top 3 ball striker in the world, that's also a great putter, and you can put him 320 dead center, which Hovland does all the time. But still, I just don't know how that's not just a massive, massive advantage for Team Europe. And I do think that he's going to play a pretty big role. I mean, in 2021, the elites were playing with scrubs. They were playing with Ian Poulter, Bernd Wiesberger. Like, they had to they're lower, and they didn't have a guy like Ludwig that could really pop and possesses really elite upside that was kind of unproven at the time. So I personally think Ludwig is going to be a big part of the week, and I would wish he wasn't on the team. Like, I don't think any of us would disagree with that. If it was a Meronk or Ludwig, obviously they never would have made that decision, but you would all feel better with Meronk.
I agree. And to go on the Ludwig thing, what we've seen from him in the small sample size, like you said, we can't really paint a full picture on his stat profile, but we know how elite he is with the driver. The 2 tournaments he contended in, the one that he won, obviously, and then the one that he blew on Sunday, were both courses where no matter where he's playing, he's dominating with the driver. But every time he's had a course where he was averaging like 150 and out, he was not playing well with his irons. Anytime he had a wedge in his hand, he was dialed. So that just goes to show maybe he's just not a great iron player. He's that build, that driver putter build. We don't know yet. So I don't know if this golf course really suits it, because we said the long iron thing. So I don't know. It's weird to say but we know how talented he is, and he could be awesome. He could lead the team if no one would be that surprised if he led the team because of how talented he is. But I'm a little bit weary for the long iron prowess because we haven't really seen it yet with him.
And I guess going in to, I know BK, you just mentioned you think that the Hovland-Aberg potential pairing is going to be a formidable combination. And I guess before talking a little bit more about the potential pairings itself, or maybe what we would pick if, we were the captain of the team, for both of you, what do you see as the difference when building a team between the foursomes format, the alternate shot, and the 4-ball? Like, if you were captain, what are some things are you looking for? And one side you want more birdies, and one side you guys wants more steadier. Like, how do you guys think about the differences in team format, and maybe what type of players, not necessarily the players specifically, but just the style of play that you want in those different formats?
Cheers, take this one first.
Yeah, I think you got to go with the most volatile golfers on one team in the 4-ball format. So the example, the guys who are making birdies and bogeys, like back and forth, I think you got to put them in the, I mean, this isn't a hot take, put them in the 4-ball format. So it's you either get a 3 or you get a 5, and it's not really going to hurt you. Whereas if you have those 2 guys in the foursomes pairing, or where you're heading alt shot, then you're kind of screwed. So go with the safe guys when you're hitting alt shot, and then in the 4-ball, you got to go with the volatile guys.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think that there's not really many people on the American side that the people I have the biggest concern in foursomes alt shot would be Burns and Ricky. Those are the only 2 I would be like, yo, like
I would say Jordan too.
Yeah, but I think it's moot because they're gonna play and it doesn't really matter. And like Solly from No Laying Up said, he which I agree with that. Jordan and JT, it's 1 + 1 = 3 with them, and they just turn into something different. Again, on the surface level, we do this shit every week. yeah, Jordan Spieth is not a great, well, he's not someone we think, oh, he's just going to put it dead center of the fairway, like consistent off the tee, like great iron player. But, this, again, he gained 5 strokes off the tee at Oak Hill, so he can do anything, truly.
They're going to win by 5 out the gates or lose by 5 out the gates, and there's not going to be an in-between. And it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter.
I remember last Ryder Cup, like, they had the first matchup against Sergio and Rahm, and I vividly remember late Vic lap being like, "Yo, Rahm and Sergio are probably going to beat them pretty easily," and they did. But then they played well. So I personally think you go with the more steady ball striker in alt shot, and I think there's also the potential to be better and closer together. I don't understand why the relationship matters in any regard in 4-ball. And I think we saw that at Whistling in the afternoon on Friday. It was like Xander and JT, and the pairings got completely mixed up. There's no, in 4-ball, you should just put whatever the data says that they birdie different holes.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they don't know each other or not. You're just going out there. Alt shot, I agree. You have to have some sign of symmetry.
Yeah. And I agree totally with what you guys are saying. And I think what's interesting kind of getting into the pairings and looking back at what the U.S. did in 2021 was both of the afternoon 4-ball pairings in both sessions for day one was Bryson and Scotty and Finau and Harris, who didn't play in the alt shot format to start the day. And so it's interesting looking, if the U.S. saw obviously a very winning strategy that they deployed in 2021, I think it's reasonably possible that a similar approach is taken, that there's 4 guys and 2 pairs of 2 sets of 2 that are only going to play the afternoon 4-ball
Ricky and
sessions. And so I guess, so let's see, I've spent so much time messing around. I can't remember where I ended up. I have Fowler and Harmon playing 4-ball together, but I guess, I just tend to think that Harmon's not going to play alternate shot. I think he's a steady player, but he's the worst course fit in my opinion on the American side due to his lack of distance and just sole reliance on the putter. So I think, if you mark Harmon down as playing both.
Yeah, but I don't think Wyndham or Ricky are going to play alt shot. So I think who do you have Ricky with? Who do you have Wyndham with?
So I have Wyndham with Homa. So here for alt shot, this is what I've got for the U.S. side for the opening session. And I think the opening session obviously is important, but the U.S. in the last 2 Ryder Cups in Europe has won just 3 out of 16 points in alternate shot. That's been the decisive point in pretty much each of those Ryder Cups, is the lack of a performance by the U.S. in the alternate shot format. And so, Luke Donald saying that he sees statistically that's a better format for them. That's why they're going out early. Obviously, he's got in the back of his head as well. He's not going to say this out, publicly, but they've dominated the U.S. in this format, and he's trying to get off to a start.
Honestly, if we could talk about that for a second, I'm kind of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, I don't. Yeah, they've been great in alt shot, and it's been the second thing on Friday. So why would you change? Like, you've always been good in alt shot, so I don't get why you would change that.
It's a bold start, and it's why I feel like getting up early Friday to watch that very first session or staying up late if you're on the West Coast. Like, I don't think it's ridiculous to say that it's decisive, because if the U.S. comes out, wins the session for the, as I just said, they've been terrible in this format in Europe, come out, win that session,
sets the tone.
It's a high risk strategy, in my opinion, to your point, for Luke Donald to be doing this. And so to me, this session is the crucial one. And so getting back to who I had, I think Cantlay Xander is, that's just a lock. I think it now looks like Brooks and Scotty.
It better be. Like, I can't imagine that their data team says that Burns, Scotty is a better alt shot. Genuinely. That would be, I would not feel good about a U.S. wager if alt shot is Scotty Burns to start tomorrow.
I totally agree. And I think, like, we're not talking too specifically about like bets that we're placing from a points perspective today, but we'll know a lot about how this Ryder Cup is going to go based on the pairings that come out tomorrow and whether the U.S. is committed to data-driven strategy, which I tend to believe that they are. I think the narrative that the U.S. is all bros and, you know, friendship, and that's going to be the name of the game. Maybe for JT and Spieth that is, but I think that is a unique case just because of their history and success playing in Europe and have done it before.
And you will know that off the bat. If Scotty's not with Burns, then I think that narrative is live. Like, we're going with the data.
And I think that is my opinion right now. I really think that it's going to be Xander Cantlay, and I think it's going to be Brooks Scotty. I will be surprised and very concerned if that's not what happens. And it sounds like you guys would agree with that.
When will that be out tomorrow?
I think it's like around 1-ish or 2-ish.
Really? Fuck yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have plenty of time, and I'll be going live to chat about the pairings afterwards.
If that's not the case if that is the case where Burns and Scotty aren't playing, does that change your narrative on why Burns is on the team? Okay, because like Burns on the team, he's playing with Scotty. Like, everyone knows they're best boys. Like, does that change your narrative on then Keegan really should have been on the team, or you don't really care?
Because
it's something to think about.
Sam is my guy.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
You invented him.
I largely invented Sam. I hit him at the match play, so nobody believes in his match play prowess more than me. I am very high on him in the 4-ball format at this course. I think he's going to be a problem, but in a good way, he's going to be a problem for the European side. I will be very concerned if tomorrow when the pairings pop up, he is paired with Scotty.
I agree with you.
I'm actually a little higher. I think that could be a winning pairing. Like, I'm not going to say that's a throwaway, like they're guaranteed to lose. I don't think that. I just think it points to the strategy of how the teams are being the pairings are being put together, which would concern me. But let's say that it's Xander Cantlay. Let's say that it's Brooks Scotty. I'm assuming that we're going to send JT and Spieth out there. It wouldn't be what I would do. I just think that if you're going to use them, alt shot is being a kind of weird format where camaraderie and history of having done it together matters. That's probably the spot that.
And JT's fine. Like, JT will play well. I have no doubts.
Top 5 at Fortinet, dude.
You can't just top 5 at Fortinet. You have to be elite.
They don't just give away top 5s in Napa.
Yeah.
So that's 3 pairings, and the final one that I've got is Max and Colin.
Yeah, they're gonna pass.
I don't love that team. Like, not gonna lie.
Really, I love it. Honestly,
like, it's a safe team. I feel like it's a safe team with a low ceiling but a high floor. Like, they're just gonna play solid matches, not give anything away, but not go and get anything.
I think that's what you need in alt shot. This is a difficult course. Like, how many birdies are going to be made in alt shot?
In alt shot. In alt shot. Yeah, I was thinking the other format.
In alt shot. And honestly, tee to green, Colin and Max are unbelievable. Both of them. Like, I don't expect them to miss many shots. Truly. And Max is a great putter, and Colin
is a gamer.
He's won a
he's got a good
Europe on slow green, so fuck it.
Yeah, so I think if I was a betting man, that's the 4 US teams that I think go out there tomorrow. And if it's different than that, I will be concerned about any of the combinations that are different than that, except maybe I'm very high on Clark. I think this is a great course for Windy. I think the confidence that he's brought to the table that's pissing people off is dope. Like, if it backfires and he sucks, well, then it is what it is. But I have no problem with the confidence that he is bringing right now. Basically, he'd have to probably plug into one of that Homa Colin pairing. You probably would, but I don't think he will. But if that were to happen, he's the only guy who could join in the alt shot teams for right out of the gates where it wouldn't instantly be concerning to me.
I really hope he plays Rory on Sunday. Like, truthfully,
it won't. Truthfully, there's no way Rory will be out first.
I'm just saying, if Wyndham plays Rory, it's such like a win-win situation for us because he either goes out and beats him and like energizes everything.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Or he loses, like Rory will be anyone else.
They'll probably be matched in a 4-ball. They're not going to play singles, but they'll probably play 4 balls together.
Well, everyone knows how deep that rivalry runs. Wyndham and Rory, it's been going on
he's like literally like one of the greatest players of our generation, someone I've looked up to. But I think I'm better than it was. I also don't like no one on Europe cares. It's not a real thing.
I don't
no
think
one,
anyone no one cares. And if there was a guy who was going to make a comparison to Rory, obviously Rory is a more decorated and talented player than Clark. That's not what I'm about to say. Clark won at Quail, which is that's his course, and he beat Rory down the stretch at LACC. Like, why wouldn't he be confident about his ability against Rory right now? Like, over the last year, what evidence does he have that he can't beat Rory, even at a spot where Rory is elite?
Also, in a 18-hole volatile match, like anything can happen.
You can't shit on him for the take. He's confident. Like, let's go, Wendy.
And also, what do you got? I don't mean to hijack it, but it's another point I kind of wanted to make is that Wyndham's saying like we're well rested. I don't think Europe is gassed because they played the BMW. I really don't, but I do think it worked out horribly for US. Not that like I don't know how many Europeans played in the Tour Championship in 2018, but I think people are forgetting. In 2018, US got on a flight from the Tour Championship, and it was who scheduled that? Is the worst thing I've ever heard. And it worked out horribly for them because you going from such a high intensity environment, you have no time to decompress. I think my biggest thing, we'll probably get to it, but my biggest thing is that US has such a massive advantage in Sunday singles. And then I think for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about, but I think one of them is just the fatigue factor. And the U.S. being more fresh going into Sunday singles, I think is just another feather in their cap to dominate Sunday singles.
Yeah. And before getting to the singles, because I definitely have opinions on the singles situation, especially on the bottom half of the European team. Going back to this first session, because if we think that singles is an advantage for the U.S. and we think that the 4-ball format is an advantage for the U.S. and again, to the history of how U.S. has performed in the foursomes or in the foursomes format, I think, again, this just first session could be make or break for Europe specifically due to the advantages that the U.S. may have in those other formats. So I think their selection of who they're going to run out here is very interesting as well, and probably a little bit harder to nail down maybe than the U.S. side. I'll go through kind of where my thinking is at. I think one that seems pretty clear at this point is Rahm and Hatton. Do we think that's
yeah, sure.
Yeah, Rahm and Hatton. Hovland, you're confident that it'll be Aberg Hovland?
Oberg, yeah.
Oberg.
Yeah.
What is
the on the Ludwig?
It's Oberg.
Can we just call him Ludwig?
It's like, yeah. I'm not saying it. I don't know. Weird. It was weird. Did you see the video?
I need to watch the video. I saw there was a video.
It's bookmarked for you.
Yeah, it's bookmarked. Yeah, for you. Check your.
But I think in general, like in alt shot, Rahm has to play, Hatton has to play, Hovland has to play, Fitz has to play, Rory has to play, Fleetwood has to play. Right? Those 6 are playing the opening session.
Yeah. And
then Ludwig's playing. It seems like. I
think he's better in alt shot. I think.
I guess maybe it's like working backwards. Bob Mac's not playing alt shot in the opening.
Serious.
Nico's not playing. I think there's a possibility that Sepp plays with Tommy in the alt shot to start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a data analyst, but I feel like Sepp's better in.
You're not
in 4-ball.
It's the Rose spot it's that last spot because you assume Ludwig's playing. So that's 7. Then there's Lowry, Sepp, Rose. And they're probably paired with either Fleetwood or Fitz based on kind of how it's been looking like of how they've been playing.
What's the line on Rose matches played? Matches played 2.5.
Roses.
Yeah, what's his point total? I don't have it up. I can pull it up. Keep talking.
Rose overall is for most points overall is plus 2,500, which is low-ish. So I think they're projecting him probably to play around 3 matches, maybe even 4. I tend to think that it's going to be him
3.
And Fitz in the alt shot to start, which puts on the bench Sepp, Nico, Lowry, and Bob, which are all the rookie or Lowry's.
I'm really nervous for Nico's well-being in this event because this is by far he's going to play 2 matches at most, but he's not going to do well.
So Rose's over under total points over 1.5 is plus 110. Under 1.5 is minus 150.
Wait,
Wow.
can we say that again? Total points 1.5.
Rose's total points is 1.5. The over is plus 110. The under is minus 150. Fitz is the same line.
What is
Fitz is over is 1.5 minus 110. The under is minus 125. Sepp Straka over minus 1.5. The under minus 1.5. So they're saying Straka is going to play more than Rose.
So then that could mean Sepp's going to play that opening session with Tommy.
What book is that? DraftKings?
DraftKings, yeah.
So just for fun's sake, let's put hold on. I'm going to put Sepp in here with Fleetwood, put Rory with Fitz, I guess, and put Fleetwood with Sepp.
Yeah, Rory's going to be with Fitz or be with Lowry.
Yeah, so Rory, Fitz, Sepp, Fleetwood, Hovland, Ludwig, Rahm, Hatton. Let's just, for example's sake, say that that's roughly what it's going to be. Again, this is a crucial, decisive session. If you believe in Europe, you have to believe that they're going to get off to a good start here. We've talked about the U.S. teams. With alt-shot teams, we've talked about the European alt-shot teams here. Xander Cantlay, Brooks Scotty, Homa Collin, JT Spieth against Rory Fitz, Sepp Fleetwood, Hovland, Ludwig, Rahm, Hatton. How does that play out? How do you see that session going? Who do you feel can't lose? It's a lock guaranteed. Who do you feel has no chance? Or is everything kind of in the middle? Or this is the decisive session. If you're pro Europe, you've got to be pro them here. If you're pro US, you don't necessarily have to be, but if you think they're going to win the session, you've got to be extremely confident in the US's capabilities. How do you guys see this?
George, go first.
Yeah, I didn't make many bets, but I did bet on Europe to win the first session. You're talking the first session, right?
Yeah, Friday morning alternate shot.
I did bet them to win the first session 3-1 and 2.5-1, just because I can't get over how adamant Donald is about this opening session, just as like a narrative based thing. This first session means everything to us. But the last time they did it in this format was 93, the year that we won in Europe. I don't know why they did that, but he's just so adamant about it. And as a USA backer, I guess I hedge it a little bit. I think Europe is going to come out the gate strong. I think they're gearing up to come out the gate strong, and maybe they'll run out of fatigue on Sunday, like we were talking about. So yeah, I do think Europe will come out of the gate strong. 4.5-1 and 5-1.
I mean, honestly, Adam, I'm not gonna get those are very formidable teams from Team Europe. It's kind of hard to poke holes in a majority of those teams. You would agree, right? Or no?
No, I don't think I would. I wouldn't necessarily agree that they're not strong teams. I would agree that they are strong teams. I just think I trust Cantlay and Xander, specifically at this venue. This is a Patrick Cantlay golf course. Drive it long and straight. Make putts on bent grass greens. Cantlay, I am extraordinarily high on Cantlay. I think he's a great match play player. Who likes playing with Patrick Cantlay? No one, except for Xander. And that's why they're such a great team in this format, because playing with Cantlay, most players don't enjoy it. So he uses that to his advantage in this format. So for me, there is not a team on Europe in this session who I would believe could beat them. So I'm giving Cantlay and Xander a point. And so for me from there, I think the U.S. needs 1 point. If they can split 2-2 in the opening session, I will feel fantastic about it. And which of these three teams do you really think? Obviously, this is somewhat of a coin flip. I'm just saying Brooks Koepka and Scotty Scheffler against any of those four teams, I will expect them to win the match. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. I just fucking hope ZJ makes the right decision. I think he will, honestly. But again, I just think Hovland and Ludwig, I think they're going to play great. And I don't know. I think Fitz has kind of been playing decent, honestly. And if it's Fitz Rory, I think that's a pretty good team. But again, I have some hesitations about Tommy. And I think that Wyndham, I think Colin and Max could beat Tommy and Sepp, or Sepp and Tommy and whoever. I think it's going to be 2-2. Basically,
if Sepp plays the alt shot, and we love Sepp. The confidence that Sepp's bringing to the table down the stretch in big events, I don't think you can question Sepp's guts or heart. Like I genuinely think he's a baller, and I think he'll step up and play well. But it's hard to say that a team with Sepp Straka in alt shot will be favored over any of the American combinations that could possibly be put out there. And because of that, I just have confidence in this first session that, again, they can get a 2-2 split, and that's not going to guarantee anything, but
that's a win that's a check mark in our box if we get a 2-2 split out the gates. 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so then you go into the afternoon 4-ball, and I would assume that every guy who's on the bench is going to play, except maybe Bobby Mack. Going back to how the European side played in the last Ryder Cup, Wiesberger, shout out Burned, didn't play the first day, and then he showed up and played alt shot to start the second day. I tend to think that it's unlikely that Bob Mack would play alt shot, but if he followed that same format, maybe they save him to come out the next morning. Like, that could happen. But I tend to think that everybody's on the bench will play in the afternoon, except maybe Bob Mack. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's fair.
And then I think you probably have to sit one of, like, whoever of Rose, Lowry, and Sepp played in the morning. I think you would sit one of them, right?
Yep. That's what I would assume that it would be. And I think, like, obviously the U.S. has a handful of players that seemingly, when you combine this course and the format, it's a great fit. We talked about Ricky. We talked about Clark. We talked about Burns. Those are all guys that you would expect to succeed in this type of format. This is the area where I actually am probably higher on Europe than the average. Like, I think I'm lesser than whatever the market average is opinion on them in alt shot, which I think that, and because of that, I'm more confident in the US overall, because I think the alt shot format is crucial. I think there's some guys who are sneaky interesting in the 4-ball for Europe. Guys like Højgaard, who's won at this course, played well here all 3 times, drives it super well, and is a streaky player, can make a ton of birdies, can make a lot of mistakes as well. You got Sepp, Aberg. Like, I actually think the 4-ball Europe's a little sneakier than like people might be assuming. What is your guys' opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree, honestly. I don't think that US automatically gets so much better in 4-ball. I think they're pretty equal in both. I don't know. I just don't know how alt shot is so weird. I honestly can't even, from 2021, like, I watched a lot of it. I can't remember one time that someone left someone in a bad position. The only alt shot thing I can remember is Jordan Spieth hitting it on the side of it. Everything else, I can't remember. Like, he left them with of course you missed putt. Like, I can't remember someone leaving someone in a horrible spot or them boning them. I just don't know. It's hard.
It'll happen more here, in my opinion.
100%, and it's a way harder. Wrestling's hard, but, like, this is a tough course. There's a lot of long irons. Like, they're not going to be winning. People aren't going to go out and make a bunch of birdies. Like, I just don't know. I just think once we get to, I know we're trending towards that, but once we get to Saturday afternoon, I just think the US's depth is going to kind of creep up on the.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't. This is not a quantifiable thing, and we're talking about the course fits the narratives. But I'm planting my flag and talking about the moment. I feel like this moment is too big for the bottom half of Europe, and I feel like we don't have those guys. Like, you can who's the most unproven guy on the US team? It's Ricky, in my opinion. Okay, exactly. It's Ricky Fowler. On all that whole, I guess, bottom 5 of Europe, I don't like. We've seen Ludwig play so good, and as soon as the pressure hits, he looks like a different guy. And this is going to be nothing like this. Like, it's going to be 10 times that. And the Højgaards, the Bob Macks, I just don't like. It's unquantifiable, but I'm planting my flag, and I just don't think, even though it's in Europe, I think it's going to be a massive factor. Like, these guys are going to, like, show their DP World Tour guts. I'm saying it. Like, I truly think it's going to happen.
I agree that,
again, it's not a quantifiable thing. It's just an opinion.
And I think on the US side, going back to, like, which is the least proven player, I might say Max, honestly. Like,
What?
Like Max has
yeah.
never. Ricky's at least
shit.
contended down the stretch in majors and like come very close to winning. Max is one of my favorite players.
Yeah,
I think he's going to play very well this week. If I was going to bet just one player like top overall points, I think Max around 18-1 is a totally fine bet with how much he's going to probably play.
What do you make it? Like, what are your odds on that?
Yeah, we got to crunch the numbers. I think I made it like plus 1850. So
okay,
we got a slight edge there. But I think Max, when it comes down to when he does get into the mix, even though it's in regular tournaments, he's never been a guy who like just, blows
and
up.
Yeah, you still trust him a lot more than that bottom half of Europe. Right?
Oh,
I think Max couldn't be more proven, and he went 4-0 at the President's Cup. So that's kind of where
Max looks so stoic and like into the moment in every single tournament. Like that guy hears more noise than anyone. He's just like, no matter what it is.
Right. And I think that's been the thing for me since day whatever long ago when the odds were America was heavy favorites and apparently we're not anymore, is we're debating whether Max Homa, a proven winner on the PGA Tour, or Ricky Fowler, or even Sam Burns should probably be in this conversation too.
Harmon's definitely in the conversation.
Yeah. But at least Harmon's a major champion now, which like you can't take away from him.
Cold.
We go over to the European side, and I mean, to be fair, I think I texted you guys before the Scottish Open and said that Bob Mack has no chance of playing well whatsoever. So my track record of saying Bob Mack is going to suck isn't necessarily good. It would be stunning if he did anything of note in this event, in my opinion. Like, he may have a good shot, he may chip in, he might do something cool, but if Bob Mack is a meaningful impact in this event, I think it would be a surprise, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I just think Ryder Cup in Europe, he's won at the course. He's not a sound golfer, but he's fucked in majors. Like, he's shown up in big events. So I think Nico has a worse showing.
I agree with you, Brian. I think Nico has a worse showing.
Like, I'm not a DP connoisseur. I'm not a DP connoisseur, but I don't know. I think Bobby
you were on Bjork at the Omega European Masters.
You literally know.
Like, that was a good pick. Versus Bjork. Omega was a good pick. I don't know if Bjork at the at Golf National last week was. It was actually, I hadn't listened to like any no laying up content, and I've just been busy, haven't had time to listen. I listened to, I think it was right after the pairings came out, and somebody asked like, I'm surprised Bjork didn't get get a closer look. Like, his numbers are off the charts, and I just started laughing because it's like
he's on like, if there's a next 6 guys, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Maybe.
Like, where's Bjork?
I mean, he loses like a stroke off the tee every single round. Like, he is,
but he's just like a modern day like Luke Donald. Honestly,
speaking of Luke Donald, not to get
fuck Luke Donald.
Like, I was genuinely shocked on his Wikipedia yesterday when I looked up his major record. I wasn't intending to look up his major record. I just pulled up Luke Donald on Wikipedia. And for a former #1 player in the world, and I'm sure the Europeans at this point are pissed at everything that's been spoken about on this podcast. So this is not offense to Luke Donald, a respectable player and a nice guy, it seems like. He played in I don't know how many total majors here. He was the #1 player in the world. And his stretch in, I mean, when was he #1 player in the world?
I think like 2011, 2012.
What year did Luke Donald become the #1 player?
Okay. I mean, he has some top
2011. But his stretch from 2010 to 2012 at his very best was cut in the Masters, T47 US Open, T11 cut, T4, T45 cut, T8, T32 cut, T5, T32. We would be destroying whoever if that was today and there was all the takes that go around with golf, we would be like, what's going on here, right? This is
another whole nother podcast. I love Wikipedia. When you have some free time, we'll talk about it. Go look at the 2011 PGA Tour season. It is the worst season of golf I've ever seen in my entire life. Every event was like the worst golfer you could ever think of won. like I think golf was at such a bad place in 2011 and there were no superstars. And Luke just like finished top 5 every week and won on the DP and won a couple PGA Tour that if the golf was so bad, it's more of a reflection of that. But let's do a deep dive on the 2011 PGA Tour season.
Like I was genuinely surprised. I was like, this can't. Because I remember him. I remember him going up against Tiger in one of the PGAs. Maybe that was when he finished T3 or T8 because those were his 2 PGAs. Yeah. Like I just had in my head that Luke Donald mixed in a lot of majors, but like he didn't. So, anyways. Advantage US when it comes to the captain's major track record. Now let's quickly talk just about the captains in general, since we're on the topic. I am concerned about how Zach Johnson has been speaking every time that he goes to talk. I want to believe that the US is only going to just go by the numbers and maybe have a little gut in there, but largely just try to do the right things. Do we trust him to make the right decisions? I would say that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because he's been an underdog who surprised people in his career. Like that's what he's done. He's won 2 majors. Like you got to respect that. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt up until 2:00 tomorrow when the pairings come out. And then I'm going to assess the situation based on what the pairings are. What is your guys' take so far or belief in?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. Like, I don't think it matters how he acts. I just think the U.S. team has evolved so much that it's not like, oh, Zach Johnson's like, oh, I kind of like Sam Burns-Scotty, so I'm going to put him out. Like, he has to have data and shit back him up. So that is my opinion.
And I agree with you. And I think that's what's confused me a little bit about like how much steam there is behind Europe, just because a lot of the times then the takes are, oh, they haven't won in Europe in forever. Oh, camaraderie, all this stuff. Like I tend to believe that what the US did in 2021 and showed a different way of thinking and how they go about it, that there's no one right now to me on the US team that's going to put themselves above the team. Like if JT or Spieth is playing terrible, I think they're going to put their hand up and say like, I shouldn't be playing anymore, or whoever that may be. I don't know, Matt, that's my sense of the US team. And that's one of the reasons why I have so much confidence, because one of the big negatives historically and why Europe has had success is because that hasn't been the case necessarily with the US team. I tend to believe that it's just a different way of thinking amongst both the team.
Yeah. And I think it's just so subjective. Whatever Zach does, obviously he's going to get criticized. He's the captain of the USA Ryder Cup team. But like, look at just this past week, Stacey Lewis threw out a foursome squad on Friday morning. Everyone was like, what the hell? And we swept it. So he can look so stupid or so smart, and there's no like right or wrong answer. I don't really think he could fuck up that badly. Yeah. Like what would he do that's just so abnormally bad?
Yeah, like
that
put Burns out and all shot. Like I don't think there's really much. I think that
exactly. He could do something crazy and it like work out
totally
awesome, like what Stacey Lewis did. I know they didn't win.
Yeah, it's hard to. There's
no right or wrong.
There's one Ryder Cup. He gets to be the captain once. That's a small sample size. He could make all the wrong decisions and win, and he could make all the right decisions and lose. Totally agree with that. So we mentioned the Sunday singles. We know the strength of, or depth, I guess, of the U.S. side, maybe the weakness of the bottom of the U.S. team or of the European team. And I think, again, going back to why I have confidence in the U.S. side is the singles has been decisive. It's 11. Is it 11 of the last 12 where the winner has done it? Shout out Sobel with that stat. Sobel had a lot of picks out there this week. His article.
Did he pick a side?
I think he picked a side, but he had a lot of picks. So shout out Sobel.
I listen to every Sobel. I listen to Sobel's 2:00 show every single day. By the way, fun fact.
Do you enjoy him talking about golf? Like, could he hang on Tib?
Yes, he's smart. Like, he's not watching right now, so I cannot stand Michael Collins. Like, I think he has the worst takes in the world. But Sobel, great guy, very smart, knows his shit. Keep going.
Yeah, no beef for Sobel.
And he's connected in the game and gets good people. Like, I think that show, I've been listening to it, but I assume there's a lot of like players and stuff that come on. Yeah. So I guess besides maybe against Harmon, would any of these players are any of these players going to be favored against any person that they could possibly play on the U.S. side? McIntyre? Besides,
No.
I don't think so. Højgaard?
No.
Rose? Maybe.
Yeah,
But
maybe like Rose.
So that's
what is I talked about it with Jeff. What is the line Rose versus Harmon?
-120 Harmon.
Right? That's kind of it's dead even.
I think Rose, I do not expect Rose to play well because of the course fit. I think he's like, his driving is a very much.
His driving's been crazy recently.
Like
Bad?
he
There's been
has been, yeah. I mean, like he lost. I mean, to be fair, he's had some bad driving performances. He lost over a stroke per round at the Scottish, over a stroke per round at the Open, barely gained at FedEx, lost a little at BMW, and gained a little at...
What major was he? Was that Oak Hill where he was like in the mix a little bit?
No, he was good at Oak Hill.
He was good at
T. He couldn't have been, was he? Because he was like he had to gain a million stroke short game.
He
I test.
He lost 0.6 per round. Oh, his accuracy at Oak Hill was awful, but he fucked. He was scrambling his irons were electric.
Red hot.
Okay.
Yeah, he gained almost 8 shots. With
well, I think the books are like he's not going to play that much. They know.
So yeah, so I guess Harmon Rose is a coin flip. Is Sepp favored over anyone besides Harmon on the U.S. side?
Like no, Harmon is beating Sepp.
Who is Lowry favored over?
Lowry's kind of fucking. Lowry's favored over Burns.
I don't know.
And so this is like I have probably over the last couple of weeks, like I'm starting to come around to some of the like European side of the perspective.
Yeah.
Like I get some of it. They're obviously playing better. It's just hard for me after like. How is it like? How does it actually happen where it's not a surprise? That's the thing to me. Like, there needs to be everybody who's pro like Europe and saying that they should be favored or whatever. Like, that's what the odds are saying that right now are going to be the same people who are surprised when Sepp Straka beats Wyndham Clark or whoever. Like, the narrative of how Europe wins feels like it has to be with upset victories, but they're now favored to win the event. That's where I guess that's like my current feeling.
I just don't understand how Europe wins Sunday singles. Have no clue, because I think our top guns could take out their top guns because they'll be a little bit more fresh and they're obviously very close. And then I think our bottom guys who will be matched up against each other. It's not like they will be matched up. I think they have a really strong showing. And I think when you talk about the Homa, Colin, Wyndham, I think they're those guys against Europe's middle guys, they're going to beat them. So part of me is like, I like US to win. They're going to win. But part of me is like, why wouldn't I just bet them to win Sunday singles? Because it's just so different than...
What's the odds of Sunday singles versus...
They're like plus 110, plus 115.
Hammer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
might bet both.
At the same time, yeah, I think I'm going to bet both. Like, I think if things get shaky in the team format, can US still... If US is getting blown out... Like, I think you look back to 2018... The U.S. team wasn't that good. Like, they have guys who look back on it 1 years later and be like, what were they doing on the team? Yeah. Bubba Watson, Webb Simpson, Tiger, Phil.
Like, it also,
why was Tiger on the team?
And it's not just the players too. It was the strategy of how they were, like paired and used at Golf National. Like, we're putting Phil and Bryson out there on a positional course, like together, and. So, I mean, Tiger was tired. Like, you look back at it and you're like, what were we even doing there? So I guess, like, assuming that we're smarter about it now and we approach it in a more logical way, what is the path for Europe's victory? And I'll start that, like, I think the only thing that I'm concerned about, it's not the fit of the course at all. I think the U.S. fits this course great. I think the U.S. has a litany of players who this is a perfect setup for. To me, the crowd and getting the players rattled is, to me, the path. Like, if it comes down to golf, I genuinely don't. I think the U.S. has the edge there. What do you like? How does Europe win if they win in your guys'
Like
opinion?
it just, I feel like you always say America has the better team and like they just show up in Europe and suck. I don't think it's going to be like that this year, but I just think I just think the history and the home advantage and Ludwig and Lowry just going nuclear is kind of the and like Burns and US making some bad decisions with Burns and stuff like that. But I don't think that's going to happen. So I feel more confident in the US like after this.
I guess, Matt, just like playing devil's advocate, like if on, let's say going into Sunday singles, Europe has gained a solid lead where it's like, even if they lost singles, they could win. Because if we're saying that the US is such a solid, we're basically saying that the lead needs to be somewhat formidable going into that.
Yeah.
What is it? Are there certain US players that play bad? Is it decisions? Is it like how? Like I guess just paint the picture of if we're sitting there, what happened?
We're talking about that European 1-4 being slightly better, but not overwhelmingly better than the US 1-4. If that European 1-4 just wipes us out the first 3 days, which is not out of the equation, and I think that's the formula for them to do it. Like that 1-4. No one would be surprised if you say the 1-4 is better than our US 1-4. If they just take control of the first 3 days and we're just have
2 days
getting too much of a hole. Yeah, 2 days, we just get in too much of a hole and they still continue to wipe the 1-4 on Sunday, then that's the path, I would say. But again, I think it's too even where they don't do that. I don't know.
Also, I think this is only semi-related. I think part of the reason that the US has gone to plus 110, if you look at like how the odds have moved, is because the tie has gone from like plus 1200 down to like plus 1000. I tend to think that's just because the Solheim Cup was a tie. I mean, it's like it like.
But I also think books are like it's very close.
But
the tie is a lot more. I don't think you would be surprised if it was a tie. I think most people's pick, if you had to pick, you would say like 15 to 13 US. 16 to 12, maybe
17 to 11.
You think it could be 17 to 11? I mean, to be fair, I was looking at I think the alt spread was like 4 or something, like win by 4 or whatever was like plus 450 or something, which I think is interesting.
Definitely.
But I will I'm not quite as confident as I was, even at the beginning of the week. Just like now that I've dug into the numbers a little bit closely, like I see the path. Again, it's just everything we've talked about here when it comes down to who the people on the European side are that are going to defeat the middle kind of depth of the US team. I think that's like has to happen for Europe to win. And that's where I still struggle of who those.
If we lose any of those bottom tier matchups, we're in trouble. But we're not. I don't think we're going to. But if we lose those bottom tier matchups, we're in serious trouble. Like the bottom 4 on Sunday, and then if those bottom 4 go out on when they play their handful of matches on
like
Friday
like I have said, the Ryder Cup will come down to Harman Sunday singles. If Harman, that's my test for the week. If Harman wins Sunday singles, like we're good.
What would be going outside of like what we think is going to happen and now just into the realm of vibes and like the taking your own, like just most entertaining thing that could happen? Which Sunday singles matchup, if you could just like, that was the one to decide the Ryder Cup, what is the tastiest matchup if you like that you would pick?
Ron Brooks. Come give me that.
I think it's definitely Brooks from the US side. Like, I think it's got to like,
yeah.
BK, which US guy are you sending out there?
I don't know. Who is it actually going to come down to, though? Like, I don't know. I think one of Colin, Wyndham, Max. Like, I think Max and Wyndham realistically would be like my guys. Like, I want to come down to them a little bit, to be honest.
I mean,
against like Rose or Lowry.
Yeah, I think Windy, like even like not against Rory, Windy against anyone in Sunday singles, if it's really important, is going to be so vibey. The club twirl, Windy.
Give me a club twirl, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I was actually looking at his. I pulled up his Twitter, and in his U.S. Open thing, he posted the full clip of the twirl. That was actually probably my favorite golf moment of the year, without a doubt. That twirl on 18 was unbelievable, and to like not totally hijacking. To just never twirl or show emotion in your entire golf career. And then on the 18th hole of Saturday, after you just made a bogey or a double, you literally unleashed the most ferocious club twirl of all time. And it hits the pin and you make birdie. Like, that was the sickest golf moment of the year by far.
Oh, I mean, like, I had nobody in the fight whatsoever watching that.
You had Wyndham. So
I like, no, that was the thing. I honestly was like kind of annoyed watching because I like literally was there and said, Wendy looks so good, and then did not chase it. When he did that, like I almost like rose out of my seat. I was like, this is, it was one of the wildest moves.
Yeah. We're going to have one of those moments this week. Yeah. Just, I mean, last President's Cup, we had the max putt. That was pretty sick. But like, I know it wasn't really a fight, but we're going to have something like that.
What I'm excited about too is you forget about it, but like, there's almost always at least a handful, at least one like rules kerfuffle. Not like a fight necessarily, but where it becomes like Brooks with I think it was Brooks last time. There's always something. And
Keegan
that's why
Miguel.
Yeah, like I could see Wendy getting like mixing it up. Brooks, Matt, like there's
if Brooks sucks, like give the money back.
We haven't talked about
PGA.
We haven't talked about Brooks.
But he has to show up. Like if he goes anything like even 500, it's fine with me. But he's got to show up.
But what do you think?
He got his middling performance out of the way last week. I'm happy he played.
Yeah, I watched it.
He's using the sim.
Yeah, reported by Matt Gannon. I think you broke the news that he
can't miss a par putt.
But
first hole, like Brooks, I don't know how Scotty could ever leave Brooks with a 6-footer. Truly, has Scotty ever had a 6-footer in his life? For par, not for Brooks. Brooks can't miss, but if Brooks misses his first par putt, hedge immediately.
You cash out. But like, what do you actually? How do you think he's actually going to play? Do you think he's going to play good? You have no opinion on Brooks.
I don't know. I hope
Juris, you watch Live more than anybody. What did like? I genuinely think that you do.
No beef.
No beef. So I'll let you be the decider on Brooks. What do we get from Brooks this week?
Well, no, you are the.
I mean, Brooks is my guy.
You know that he needs to play in a week before he plays in a big event. So he did it, and he doesn't have to necessarily play great the week before. He didn't play bad. He didn't play good. Middling result, whatever. Didn't look bad. Didn't look great. So I think he's vibing. He's just Brooks. Brooks is Brooks. His comments were very Brooks-like. Sounds like a dick in the press room. Like that's what we want from Brooks. Put him out there with Cantlay. Let's fucking do it. Like I want to see Brooks look awesome, and I think he will do well. Yeah, he's a savage. He's a gamer. And
yeah, we're almost wrapping up here, but on that point of a fantasy pairings, now stepping away from like what's actually going to happen and what is legitimately, if you were captain, I think 4 balls is like a good spot because I think we've talked about there's only so many combinations of the foursomes, like teams that make sense. What is a pairing that you were like, this is a lock? This is my squad that I'm sending out there. That's a little off the cuff because I think
my squad would be Wyndham Harmon.
That could happen. I like that. That could happen. Like because if Wendy and Harmon are gonna sit, like because I was just said it last time, they had the 2 sets of 2 that only did. It could be Wendy Harmon, but probably not. But it would be sick.
That would be sick.
Two majors
I hit too. That would have been awesome.
Probably like Brooks Cantlay just to totally throw the other team off. I know it would never happen, but like that'd be funny.
I think that's the thing. They'd
be good.
I'm not crossing off the possibility probably on either side. I think maybe on the European side just because there's the top players have to play a certain like number of matches. I don't put any possible pairing past the US. Like I think there's legitimately if somebody is hot, wins a couple matches, and he wasn't I think the second day, especially the last session 4-ball, that's probably the most random thing to try to guess right now is like who goes out there.
Yeah.
In that. And I think on the European side, like, yeah, Aberg with anybody is going to be interesting. Rory, Rahm, or
I think
Vic,
Sepp with anybody also.
Sepp could be vibey with anyone.
Yeah, I don't know how the data points Sepp and alt shot.
I don't think Nikolai is friends with anyone besides like Bob Mack. Like truly. Like, I don't think Nikolai's talked to Rory outside of this week. So that'd be weird.
I think they played like a long time ago. I think Abu Dhabi with Thomas Peters. Shout
Yeah,
out.
I can't imagine Nico being like a story. Like I know you said that would be so crazy.
I agree.
It was like Nikolai Hogard is like
I love him too, and I just don't see it. I do not see it here. I know he's played well here. I just don't see him playing well in this moment on this scale. This is massive.
Who do you think you think Bobby Mack's more likely to do something like meaningful than Hogard?
Sure. Yeah, and you know my thoughts on Bobby Mack, even though Brian like knows I bet him here and there. I think he's an unserious golfer, and I think Nikolai's career is way better than Bobby Mack's, but I think Bobby Mack in this spot has a better chance because Bobby Mack's at least proven it to do some cool things in big moments, whereas Nikolai really has not.
That's fair. One more guy I think we haven't touched on much, and I think he's a critical piece of the puzzle for Europe based on how he's played in Ryder Cups previously, but now he's US Open champion and he comes here. Matt, what are you expecting from Fitzpatrick this week?
Like his season was so weird, like so random. Obviously that win at RBC was crazy. I mean, came out of nowhere, I guess. And then he picked it up the last X amount of weeks. So he's playing good golf at the right time. Unlike Lowry, he didn't really pick it up. So I think he's could be a problem.
I mean, Fitz is driver putter.
Yeah.
How do we think about what happened at the Omega European Masters? Was that Fitz? Because some people this is maybe how I would think about it. He was 8-1 favorite coming into the event, pretty much dominated the tournament for the first 3 days. Probably would have been up even more on Saturday. He had an awful iron shot into the water that cost him even more of his lead. Ludwig ends up winning. Ludwig ends up winning. Ludwig is, gets all the hype for that, and to some degree deserving. He finished strong, but I think there's a lot of positivity for Ludwig because of what happened there. Isn't there also some negativity of what happened to Fitzpatrick's there? And then you look at Fitzpatrick's record here in the Ryder Cup historically.
I personally don't think anything you do on Sunday at a tournament a month ago matters in the Ryder Cup.
And he's been playing good around that. It wasn't just like that one tournament where he popped up. He started to play well the latter half of the season into this DP.
Not really. I mean, he really just played well at the BMW, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he played.
I think he picked it up at the
No, you're right.
He was T18.
But still, that's better than him being average until.
I
don't think it matters.
I'm not
surprised if he played well.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's a negative for how he's going to play. I think it's just more of the narrative of what happened at Omega being it's only seen as a positive because Ludwig played well. But I just think in general, Fitzpatrick is he's seen as a top level player in the European tide, as he absolutely should be. He's only one of him and Rahm have won majors kind of in this stretch, but his history obviously not great. One of those being when he was a much younger player. I just think he's it's hard. I just don't know what to expect from him. And I think it's a key aspect to what ends up playing out.
Yeah. Because he's a guy that they expect to play well.
One of Rose, Fitz, Sepp, and who am I missing?
Tommy?
No, not Tommy. One of those three have to be great for Europe to have a chance.
Fitz, Lowry, or Rose? Is that
Fitz, Lowry, Rose. One of them, or Sepp. I'll throw Sepp in there. One of them have to be unbelievable for them to win.
What I would do is I'd add Ludwig in there and say that two of those five have to play remarkably well.
Right. Yep.
And then you have to assume that Fleetwood and Hatton play to the level that they're capable of playing as well. Yeah. Well, I think we covered some good ground here. To end, give me maybe summary of how you think the week's going to play out. What's your take? Who wins? Maybe a best bet, but
I said it months ago. I think the Ryder Cup's going to come down to Homa, Wyndham, and Colin. If they all fuck, U.S. is going to win.
I'm going to say Europe gets off to a hot start. People are already Vic lapping. People are already saying, I look at your Team USA sucks. What the fuck is JT doing on the team? We get off to a good afternoon Friday, and then we cruise from there. So that's my take.
If the US wins, and if it's a coin flip, I think that's one thing. I think if they win like relatively easily, that's a different thing. Do all the Europe people? I assume I assume that they just say like, "Oh, it was value. It was the better bet." Like I assume that's going to be the reaction, right?
Yeah, I would assume. There are some people I will go at for sure.
We got to talk about this, Brian.
And I think, to be fair, like the opposite's true. Like I've been pro US. If they lose, like I'll put my hand up and say that I was wrong. But I think, I mean, like in summary, I think the narrative has gone too far. Like I get it. People act now as if the odds or the books didn't know that the U.S. had not been good in Europe historically coming into the Ryder Cup. They've known that since the odds came out 2 years ago. Like they've known that it's going to be played in Rome, that there's going to be an away crowd. Yes, the European team has improved at the top. Hovland's playing great. Certain guys are playing well. I just when it comes down to playing golf, I don't see what has changed so much over this period of time. That's why I'm pro U.S. That's what I'll be going with this week.
I'm also pro-U.S. I'm very pro-U.S.
And I think too, so I guess one other thing. I don't think I plan on really betting many other things. I'm just going to bet the U.S. mainly because like we bet golf every single week. We bet random guys that we don't really care about, and we get into it because like we just have money on them for that week and they become our favorite golfer for the week. It's so rare to like just both go out, make a stand that this is what you believe is going to happen, and then it also is the U.S. and I'm American. Like to me, I just kind of want to get into it and just solely focus on the U.S. trying to win versus worry like who's getting how many points or like I care about it. Like I'm gonna write it up. I'll probably do like a few small bets just for fun, but I think I'm just gonna solely focus.
Yeah, I'm not betting a bunch of props. I'm gonna bet like a few matchups, but like my thought process is like I usually invest like $450 a week on outrights. And if I don't win, I don't even think twice about it. So like I'm willing to lose that on
because the bonus,
at least. But just in general, like if whatever you bet on a regular week in golf outrights, you should bet on a side or at least bet on props and shit. And then I'll probably bet. I'm not betting a bunch of props because I don't want to only win 500 or 750 and then be like, oh well, I lost 200 on XYZ. Like I'd rather just.
I think too, like either on Sunday, either want to feel complete euphoria that the U.S. won and that was just the bet I had, or devastation. They lost and I was completely wrong. Like
that's how it should be though.
I've accepted that those are the fates. When it comes down to like placing a bet, there's nothing more high stakes than whether you're going to feel fantastic or terrible. So that's the approach. Matt, are you doing a lot of
No, I
bets,
agree. I hammered US. I wrote up a few prop bets, but they're very minor. I'm just with you on the side. Just going to go heavy on that because, I mean, the prop bets, when it boils down to it, they're going to go a certain way. But at the end of the day, you want US to win. So you're just rooting for the majority. I don't want to get too into the weeds with it.
Yep. Totally agree. Well, by not that much time into tomorrow when you wake up, we will have the Ryder Cup pairings. We've been waiting quite some time. They'll be here tomorrow. I'll hop on afterwards and talk a little bit about the pairings. And I'm sure there's some stuff that we talked about today that will already be incorrect when the pairings come out tomorrow. And it'll make our thinking change a little bit. And then we'll be live each day after the golf. We'll be waking up early to catch all the action and catalog what's taking place for those who want to sleep in a little bit more. So good luck, gentlemen. Good luck to the U.S. We might talk a little bit more this weekend. We'll see. But thanks for coming on.
Have a good night, everybody.
So,
good night.